Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's forecast. Today we'll be talking about a level 2 slight risk up in a little area up here that's currently in Canada. The low pressure system that's up there is going to be the cause of the next couple days' storms. And right now you can pretty much very clearly see where it's at right here. And there is a nice jet streak out to the southeast of that. And then this jet streak is going to be responsible for the majority of the severe weather that's going to happen today. And in today's forecast, I'm going to break down pretty much everything that's going to happen in the next couple days. And starting with today, we have this very obvious low pressure system setting up over Canada. And it is pretty much going to be stationary throughout the day, and right now this is going to be about 4 o'clock p.m. That low pressure system is just going to sit there, but that jet streak shifts throughout the day, and it'll kind of sit over North Dakota, South Dakota. However, this is where we're expecting the worst severe weather to be, is kind of in that jet streak down into northeast Colorado. We're going to be watching anything that goes up in this area. This low pressure is a fairly strong one. We are entering a more summer mode, so the jet stream is going to be further to the north, but going throughout the evening or 6 to 7 p.m. And as it progresses, the jet streak will steadily become more widespread and not as tight as it is in the early part of the day. But the low pressure system will pretty much remain almost completely stationary. And you may notice there's a couple other smaller, weaker low pressure systems kind of off to the south, and this will cause some additional severe weather in the southern plains in the next few weeks as well. Looking up north, as we can clearly see, there is some already low to mid 60 dew points as far as southern Canada, and we are getting going to be seeing more of moisture throughout the day. Going into the next several hours, as you can see, the moisture at about 4 o'clock p.m. It separates a little bit. There's a blob of it down to the south and some up to the north. However, we're watching any storms that go up off to the west of this, and there will be all hazards possible today as well. However, we were watching as these storms move off to the east, closer to the moisture, and going off into the evening hours today. The moisture will remain, and whatever storms go up will take advantage of that environment. Looking at mixed layer cape or instability, storm energy, we see already a glob of 500 to 1,000 and even up to 1,500 up in North Dakota already as early as this morning. However, going into the afternoon and evening, that storm energy spikes close to 3,000 across North Dakota, and we start to see it increasing across western South Dakota as well. And watching all up in all these areas, we are going to be watching for storms to pop up and take advantage of that environment. And going into Wednesday, we see again another spike of instability in South Dakota, which we'll be watching very carefully. Going into reflectivity, here in the morning, there's some scattered showers and thunderstorms from western South Dakota up into North Dakota. These might produce just some rain and thunder here and there. However, nothing too significant is expected out of these storms. Going off into the afternoon and evening, we start to see a spike of severe activity in southern Canada into southwestern North Dakota. Especially in North Dakota, there's a couple of embedded cells in that line. This is going to be about 4 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So about peak heating is ongoing. Large hail and damaging winds are the main threat. However, there is a tornado threat with these storms as they move off to the east-northeast. And continuing off into the afternoon, we start to see even more storms take off across northwest Nebraska and across up north into North Dakota. On the front edge of the storm system, there can very well be an isolated tornado, large hail, and damaging winds. We're watching everything as these storms progress off to off to the northeast, east, northeast, and eventually they will break down. However, going into Wednesday, we start to see a couple more storms taking off in that favorable environment, going off into Wednesday afternoon and evening as well, which we'll be watching very closely. And again, there's about Wednesday, 5 p.m., and you start to see those storms seriously take off across Nebraska, South Dakota, and even up in North Dakota and southern Canada. Now going into the Storm Prediction Center, we see this level 2 slight risk ranging from eastern Wyoming all the way up to the Canada and United States border. In that area, we are expecting an isolated strong tornado or two, large hail and damaging winds. Let's go and look at the tornado risk. A level 2 slight risk ranges from about Denver, Colorado, all the way up to the Canadian United States North Dakota border. And we do see this 5% area ranging from western South Dakota up to southern North Dakota. And we do have another hatched risk in the 2%, ranging further up into central North Dakota down into far northwest Nebraska. This is where that main kind of bigger line will be. However, we'll see more kind of isolated, potentially semi-isolated, stronger supercells in that general area from western South Dakota into southwestern North Dakota. If that does happen, the tornado threat will increase a little bit, and we will be watching it very carefully. Now, the wind risk goes all the way down to from the Canadian North Dakota border all the way down to the Mexican Texas border. Now, generally 60 to 70 mile per hour winds look likely from any of these areas in the brown across the United States, and that especially applies to that yellow 15% unhatched area ranging from the Canada-North Dakota border down to northwest Nebraska. We're watching that area for the highest chance for a couple of winds, gusts of wind 60, 65, maybe it's a 70 miles per hour. And now looking at hail, we see a hatched risk ranging from about almost the Canadian North Dakota border all the way down to northwest Nebraska. We can expect up to baseball size hail. That's over 2-inch size hail. And this can be in eastern Wyoming, northwest Nebraska, central to western South Dakota, and southwest to central and even North Dakota. These are with the strongest updrafts that can go up and stay somewhat isolated and can very well produce some very large hail. Going into the day 2 outlook, we do have another slight risk, this time further to the east. Marginal risk still extends all the way down to the Oklahoma-Texas borders, or panhandles, sorry. We'll get to those here in a sec. Let's focus on this level 2 slight risk, ranging from far western Minnesota down to the Nebraska-South Dakota border. Let's go into the tornado risk. This time it is not as high. There's a little level 2 unhatched risk ranging from about central South Dakota up to the northeast into far southeastern North Dakota. Again, this is generally for any cell that can remain somewhat discrete or semi-discrete and could produce an isolated tornado, but it would be very, very brief and weak. Let's go to the wind outlook now. Now, here is when things get a little more interesting. We can have 60 to 65 mile per hour winds from just north of Amarillo, Texas, all the way up to the North Dakota and Canadian border once again. However, in this 15% slight risk ranging from the Nebraska-South Dakota border all the way up to southeastern North Dakota and far western Minnesota, we are expecting a bit of a higher wind risk where we could see 60, 65, maybe as high as 70 mile per hour winds with any sustained storms that merge into that line, which will eventually move off to the east. Hail, now we could see significant hail down to the Kansas-Nebraska border. And in that area, we could see up to tennis ball to baseball size hail. And this attached risk does range into that slight risk from southern South Dakota up to southeast North Dakota. This is for any sustained updrafts that can stay semi-discrete and away from other cells or the line. And quarter to golf ball size hail possible outside of that in that brown unhatched risk that is in far western Texas and western Kansas, eastern Colorado, and the Nebraska Panhandle. and that would technically stretch out into southern Canada as well.